So today we're going to look at writing equations of lines given 2 points. Now keep in mind, so far we have done things like if my slope is 3 and my y-intercept is 4, we want you to write the equation y equals 3x plus 4. Okay, but today we're going to give you 2 points that are on the line, and from there we're going to discover the equation. Now before we jump into that, we created a little table here for you of common decimals and what fractions those are as a way to go back and kind of check. Now, don't forget, if you don't want to check here or you just want to do it on your calculator, in the beginning of the year, you did that graphing calculator scavenger hunt. So like if you were to type 0.125 into your calculator, okay, and then you hit the math button, and then you press enter, it'll take that and convert it to a fraction, and it'll tell you your answer then would be 1/8. Okay, so remember the math menu, and this one, when you press enter, you're saying you want what's called so fraction, and then enter says go ahead and do it. This second enter tells it to go ahead and do it. Okay, so remember that's always there, and we're going to need that sometimes, but we thought maybe this would help as far as not having to always look things up. Okay, all right, so let's get started. We've written out the process for you. Now, what I want you to notice before we get too far into this is that anytime we have something in a box, so any of these are in a box here, okay, those are all buttons on your calculator. Okay, those are all buttons on the calculator, but this is the process we're going to follow. So first we're going to plot our 2 points and then draw the line. Okay, so we're actually going to graph these just so that we can get a visualization of what it's going to look like. We're going to make observations. So I want to know, should my slope be positive, negative, that sort of thing? Make a good guess about the y-intercept. Okay, then what we're going to do is we are going to put those 2 coordinates. Okay, so our points are coordinates, right? We get an xy, an xy, and another xy. Okay, we're going to put those values into our calculator, and it's going to tell us what the equation is. So the first thing we have to do is clear the list. So we're going to make a list of our points. So we have to clear that. And you do that by hitting the second, then plus, then 4, then enter on your calculator. Okay, and we're going to go through this together, but I just kind of want to let you know what's going to happen. Okay, then we're going to input our points into our calculator. Okay, so it's going to look something like this. You're going to have a table, and it'll say L1 and L2. Okay, we're going to put our X's in this side and our Y's on this side. Okay, so if my point is like 6, -4, my 6 is going to go here, my -4 is going to go here. So just the way it appears as a point, that's the way it's going to go in the list. Okay, in order to put those points in, we press the stat button and then number 1, which allows us to edit it. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and list all of our coordinates. And then in order for it to find that equation, it's called linear regression. Okay, it's called linear regression. And you'd press stat, then you would arrow over, hit 4, then enter. And then it's going to give you a menu. And we'll talk about what that menu is and what that display means. And from there, we're going to be able to write our equation. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So our first problem looks like this, and I said the first thing we want to do is go ahead and plot our points. So at -1, 1, here's my first point, and at 1, 5, there's my second point. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and just sketch a line. Okay, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but got off just a little bit, but it's good enough. All right. So the idea is, okay, I can look at this and I know there's going to be a positive slope. So my slope, when I get my answer, it should be positive, right? Okay, and I know my y-intercept, my b-value should be about 3 to 4, maybe 2, okay? So somewhere around in there. Okay, somewhere around in there, but it just gives us a good guess. All right, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to pull up my calculator and we're going to go through how to solve this problem. Okay, so what I want to do is show you how this is going to work on your calculator. So the first thing we need to do is clear all lists. So I said to do that we need to hit second, the plus sign, number 4, notice I brought up a menu, right? Number 4, and then enter. And what you should see on your screen is it should say clear all lists and done, meaning it did it. Okay, so you have to see done. If you don't see done, make sure you hit enter. Next, we're going to go ahead and input our data. So we're going to go to the stat button. And number 1 is edit, so you can either hit 1 or enter. Okay, so this is up here. You see where you see list 1 and list 2, like I explained that would happen. Okay, so list 1, remember, is going to contain our x coordinate. So I'm going to type in a -1 and hit enter. I'm going to arrow over to list 2 and I'm going to type in my y coordinate, which was a +1. Hit enter. Okay, I'm going to go now. The second row is going to contain our second point. Our second point was a 0.15. So I'm going to type in the number 1, hit enter, arrow over, 5, enter. So you can actually see there our coordinates -1, and 1,5. So those are our 2 points that we had on our graph. Okay, so now we're ready for it to calculate the equation. So we're going to go ahead and hit stat. We're going to arrow over to calculate, so you have a little arrow. Okay, and we want number 4 right there, the linear regression. Okay, now, most of the stuff you're not going to mess with, okay? So just hit enter, 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 all the way down to calculate, and just hit enter again. And this is the screen that's going to be so important to us. So what you need to see there, it says, okay, it's going to take the form of y equals ax plus b, meaning it's in the form of a line. It says a is 2 and b is 3. A is 2 and B is 3. So that's going to tell us what to plug in for A and for B. All right, so if you remember, our calculator screen said A equals 2 and B equals 3. Okay, and we have up above y equals ax plus b. All right, now, really what we're doing here now is just a substitution. Okay, so where it has an A, we're going to put the A value. Where it has the B, we're going to put the B value. So our equation is y equals, oh my, that's not good. Let's try that again. Y equals 2x plus 3. Okay, so there's my slope, there's my y-intercept, and we did a pretty good guess. Remember how we talked about, I thought my y-intercept would be around 3, maybe down to 2 or 4, but in that general area. My slope, did end up being positive. So here is my equation for the first one. Y equals 2x plus 3. Okay, let's do this again. So on our next problem, first thing I'm going to do is plot my points. So I have the point 0, -5, and I have the point -4, -4. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and draw in my line. This time I'm just going to hand sketch it. There we go. Okay, so I can tell that I'm going to have a negative slope. Okay, I know I'm going to have a negative slope. And my guess, and it's a pretty good one, is that my y-intercept here is going to be a -5. Remember how we talked about if x is 0, that means it's where it's crossing the y-axis, right? So that is going to be my y-intercept, my b value. But let's kind of prove that to ourselves. Let's look and see how this is going to go. All right, so I'm going to go back to my calculator. First thing we're going to do is clear our list. So go ahead and clear your lists. Okay, we're going to do that by hitting second plus 4 and enter. Okay, on your screen it should say clear all lists and done. Now we're going to input those data points. So I'm going to go to stat and edit. And notice those table of values are empty again. So I'm going to put in the point 0 and -5, then the point -4 and -4. Okay, make sure you're hitting enter after each one. So when you look up at your screen, you should be able to see the point, like the coordinate 0, -5 and -4, -4. Okay, so we input our data. Okay, now we're ready to calculate. So I'm going to go back to my stat button. I'm going to go over to calculate. And I want number 4, linear regression. And go ahead and hit enter until you have your equation. So for me it says A equals -0.25 and B equals -5. Okay, so here's one of those decimals. So if you don't recognize that, look at that table conversion that we have up at the top of the page. You should recognize that. That is -1/4. All right, so my equation is y equals Y equals negative 1/4 x minus 5. Now, the reason I had you convert this to 1/4 is we can kind of check it. So look at our original graph here. Think about it. I did go down 1 and over 4, right? So my slope is a negative 1/4. All right, let's do one more together. Again, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and plot our points. So the point 0, 1 and the point 3, 5. Again, I'm going to go ahead and hand sketch it. I can tell I'm going to have a positive slope this time. That's a terrible line, but we're going to have a positive slope. And I can see where the y-intercept is going to be. All right, so let's go ahead and clear our list. I'm going to hit second, plus 4, and enter. That cleared my list. I'm going to go to stat. I want to edit. I'm going to put in my 0, 1 and my 3, 5. Okay, now I'm ready to calculate. So I'm going to press stat. Go over to calculate. Number 4. Hit enter as many times as you need. All right, so now we have our A value and our B value there. All right, so we have a fraction here. Let's pretend that, we couldn't find that on our paper, right? Because I know it's on your paper, but let's pretend we couldn't. That way we know how to input this. So in your calculator, I want you to type in 1.333, just put a bunch of threes. I did like 5 or 6 of them. Okay, so I have that on my screen. I'm going to press the math button. It's the third button down, the math button. And you're just going to hit enter and enter. Okay, and it should give you 4/3. It should give you 4/3. Okay, and my B value is 1. So I can go ahead and write my equation then. Y equals 4/3 x plus 1. Again, that makes sense because our slope is positive, our y-intercept is 1. Okay, so you have 6 more problems on the back to check over. So go ahead and do those 6, and then we have an activity for you to do.